The only thing I can say is I had the best birthday ever that I woke up locked in a bar, the Continental Divide in New York City. It's not there anymore. The city's changed so much. But that summer, Wax, we decided we were out there on tour. And this is the type of stuff we do all the time. Like we're out on tour, we're signed to Caroline Records. The only reason we're on Caroline is because we're actually signed to Virgin Records, but Caroline is owned by Virgin, and Virgin has told Caroline, you need to put out the Wax record, which, you know, I'm new to the business. I don't know. That's lame. No wonder every time we'd go to Caroline Records, they were like, you know what? No one's here to see you. Like they were so not into us. And we had we go out there to play. I remember we played this thing called CMJ. It was all the hip bands on Caroline and they put us on it. And it was like Drop 19s and Smashing Pumpkins and Wax. And for some reason they made us play last, which I am not kidding. We went on at like 3 a.m. I'll never forget it. But the only people that came to see us were Arturo Vega with the Ramones, Jesse Malin from D-Generation, Howie Pyro from D-Generation. I think the whole band was there. And that was how we met our people in New York. Daniel Ray, our producer, came down. And after that night and realizing we're signed to a New York-based label, we were supposed to fly home. Like that was the end of our tour. And the next morning we get up and we're waiting to fly home. And we're sitting there and everyone just is like, all right, I guess it's time to go back to California. And I'm saying to the band, I don't know, man, how's this going to work out? We're from California. Our label's here in New York. Next thing we know, we go to a bar, we start having a couple cocktails, waiting to fly home. And one, I don't know who said it, but someone's like, we should just move here. And we were like, yeah, why don't we? That's how, nowhere to live. Like all our gear is just there in front of us at this, waiting for it on a stoop. And all of a sudden we're like, yeah, we should live here. Like if we go back, we'll never get to know the people at Caroline Records. So that summer we just moved to New York. And I remember we walked around with the Village Voice looking for people that were subletting. Because back then they would sublet, like, I'm going away for the summer. It's too hot. We'll sublet. We found this woman. She had just gotten divorced. And she was like, I'm going to Brazil for the summer. I'm out of here. You guys, and we're like, yeah, we each had $500. So we had $2,000. And she's like, all right, just give me $2,000 and I'll get the rest from you later on. Dude, she gave us a 2-bedroom apartment. It was super, super tight, like a loft style. Like it was a 1-bedroom apartment. I take that back. 2 guys were in the back and then me and our bass player were in the front. Futon and then another thing underneath. And we lived in there. We gave her $2,000 and we lived there for 6 months. We never heard from her again. To this day, we just left. We were like, all right, I guess we're done living here when we finally left. But the summer that we lived there, oh my God. It was like the summer of 91. It was right before our record came out. And CJ Ramone had broken both of his arms. And we were friends with CJ because Daniel Ray produced the Ramones and produced our Wax record. So when CJ broke, I met him in LA so that he'd come into the city. He had 2 broken arms and he couldn't go on tour with the Ramones. So he would just come out with us all the time. And I remember it was so like a scene out of New York. We'd open up the window, we'd yell, yo, CJ! And he'd yell back up, and he'd come back. And that summer they had this drink that our drummer loved called Captain Morgan's. It's terrible. They loved it. And they were doing these things where like if you bought like a gallon of Captain Morgan's, it came with a little like mug with it. So all summer long, he would come over there with those. We'd hang out all the time. It was like one of the best summers ever. That summer we played on Lollapalooza. We started playing CBGBs and we started going to Caroline Records where we started to meet the people that worked there. The president, the guy that was working our record, all the people. And they started liking us. Like they went from hating us to all of a sudden they're like, you know what? These guys are all right. Like they moved here. We started getting a buzz out there and we started playing shows. But before we could get on any shows, the only bar that would let us play was this bar called Continental Divide. And there was this bartender in there / booker named Roger. And we would go in there drinking with the guys from D-Generation. And I remember the first night we ever went there, they go, this is our spot. This is our hang. We light this bar on fire. And he kept saying, we light the bar on fire. And I was like, all right. Like I thought like okay, like you're just having such a good time. Like I figure like just those, like it doesn't literally happen. And sure enough, every night that we would go there at around 2 a.m, Roger would be like locking it up. He would lock the door and we would stay in there till 6 a.m, raging. And at a certain point, I remember the bar would be on fire. Howie Pyro would light the bar on fire. One night they took all the chairs from the bar and we got music on. They're still DJing, everyone's raging, and the chairs are all in a big, like just stacked on top of each other, and they lit those on fire. Like it was all about lighting stuff on fire. And at a certain point, you didn't even think twice about it. You're like, yeah, that's on fire. What's up? We were having I would call my mom from there. I'd go back there, grab the phone, call my mom, what's up? Put her on the phone with everybody at the bar. Roger, he had this hat, this Schlitz malt liquor hat. I'd always pinch it off and wear it. It's in the first Wax video. But during that summer, my birthday's in August, and I remember Jesse Mallon and I, who, we were like brothers from another mother, man, we just hit it off. And on my birthday, he's like, I'm taking you out. We're going to do this. And I remember D-Generation was playing over at Maxwell's. And I went over there with them. And then we came back into the city and we went here, we went there, and all the Wax guys were hanging out. And then at the end of the night, we ended up at the Continental. And, it was like any other night. Bars on fire, music's on, calling people on the phone, but it's my birthday. I'm setting it off, As we're cruising around, there was this backstage area that they had. And in the backstage area, they had these, like, you walk into the room and they had these shelves that were huge where people were supposed to put their gear when they played live so that the gear wasn't everywhere. So if you had a Marshall head, you put it up there, your drums, you put it up there. But it was like bunk beds. And at one point I was like, man, I need a little bit of a break. And I didn't really think much about it. I went in there and I climbed up to the top one and I'm just gonna lay down here for a little bit. And the last thing I remember is climbing up there, laying down, and then the next thing I remember, waking up and no one's in the bar. And it's completely empty. And I'm like, what? And I remember I walked down, and as I walked over to the front door of the bar, I opened the door, but the metal screen is down and that locks on it. And I'm like, oh, damn, I'm locked in the bar. Like I'm literally locked. I'm like trying to open it and people are walking, going to work and everything. The sun's out and I'm just on the other side. There's no way to get out. And I remember I walked back over to the bar and I'm kind of freaking out, and I grabbed the phone and I saw, back then it's phone numbers. It says Roger. I call Roger and I remember it. Let it ring once, doesn't answer. I call back again, doesn't answer it. Third time he answers. Who the hell is that? And he's yelling. I'm like, yo, it's Joe Sib. He's like, how'd you get, what? And I'm like, dude, I'm at the bar. And he goes, so what? I go, no, you locked me in the bar. He goes, what? I go, I'm in the bar. He goes, how'd you get in? I go, no, I must have fallen. I passed out in the back and you locked me in. He goes, oh my God. And he just hangs up the phone. I'll be right there. Boom, he hangs up. And then it just hit me. I'm sitting there and I remember I walked back around, I sat down, and then I'm like, oh my God, man, like I'm literally locked in this bar. I was like, well, it's my birthday. And what do I do on my birthday? I always call my mom. So I call my mom. She's like, hey, what's up? Hi, honey. And I'm like, Mom, I got locked in the bar. And she's like, oh, that's great. And oh, are you serious? Yeah, last night you sounded like you were tying one on. I'm like, oh my God. And I'm sitting there with her. I look and I just see all the kegs of beer. And I remember everything's clean. I'm like, well, you know what? I might as well start. Boom. Poured myself a beer and waited for Roger to come and get me. He shows up with Jesse, because he calls Jesse going, dude, Joe Sib's locked in the bar. Jesse shows up with Roger. Then the next thing you know, and like one of the other guys from G-Generation shows up, and then another, and next thing you know, it just starts all over again. And we're just back there again, but all on my birthday, everyone's celebrating.